Hi, this is the Don Devilak. You have reached the sixth video in our series, You Have a Product, and it's talking about partnerships. Partnerships are the easiest way to turbocharge your product sales. Now, most of you probably don't have partnerships and you haven't thought about partnerships, but in reality, partnerships is really a very strong key to go. You've really invested a lot of money, you have your product going, and you really want to get that product out in a big way in a big hurry. Now, really back in creating an invention plan, we had talked about the difference between partnerships such as private label, joint ventures, and maybe working with other inventors versus going it alone. Now, many inventors do like to go it alone because they want to have their own brand, their own company. But I think once you get started, you'll see some of the pitfalls in doing that. It's a lot of work, it's hard to generate enough revenue, and it's hard to generate a lot of funding. So, if you've gone to the spot, you've tried that and saw how it works, don't be afraid to come back and look at partnerships. As long as you've done networking and met a lot of people in the industry as you go along, you're really leaving your options open to either do a partnership or maybe go alone into the marketplace. Types of partnerships, well, there's many different types. We've talked about some of them before, and I'll refer you back to the slide video shows where we really cover them in depth throughout this video. But they're private label. This is where you sell your product. Another manufacturer puts his name on the product, and it goes out really under his branding rather than your branding. Joint ventures, this is where you sign up with a company and you work with the company, maybe as a 50-50 partner, maybe some other percentage, but the two companies are going out together as one to sell the product. And you're really doing this for funding, usually from a manufacturer or distributor, so you get a big boost there from their funding, and it's really the most cost-effective way to get money, but of course then your ownership goes down. You can actually have exclusive distribution or exclusive manufacturing rights. Either one, in order to, is a partnership arrangement in my mind because you're getting funding or some kind of benefits from those companies in return for you giving them an exclusive. So in a way, it's like a joint venture, but you still own 100% of the company, but you're kind of sacrificing your ability to take on new partners or new companies and new distribution. You might have a long-term agreement, and you might have a short-term agreement for all types of different partnership arrangements where you're really committing to doing something, your partner's committing to doing something, and hopefully they're putting up upfront money in order to do it. Sharing resources, this is sort of a lot of inventors will have a small company, one product line. They'll be kind of maybe getting out in the marketplace 1 or 2 million. Well, if you can partner with those companies and share your resources, particularly in sales and distribution and possibly in manufacturing, if your production process is similar to the other companies, all these are sharing resources that will help you really move your product ahead much more quickly into the marketplace. Now, private label, if you go back to video number 2 under creating an introduction plan video series, that entire video is dedicated to private label. So in a private label, you sell the product to a manufacturer distributor who sells it under their name. When you see products in Target, Walmart, or our own hardware, there's almost any store you can go into, you'll see some products that are sold under that store or distribution channel's name. That's a private label arrangement. Some company is making that product, owns the rights to the product design, and is selling it to Target at a discount, who then marks it up and sells it to the end user. The advantage, of course, is you pick up a very large distribution network, but you lose margin. So if you are actually selling a product and you're on your own, you might have 50% margin, which is the difference between the price you sell the product for and your manufacturing cost. Well, if you're in private label, you're going to maybe make 20% margin rather than 50%, maybe 25%. But you do get a large distribution network, and all of a sudden now you don't have a lot of sales cost. So it's not unusual for sales costs for a small company to be 20% of their revenue. So whereas you do lose money and you do lose margin, you also don't have to pay your sales cost, which really doesn't really equalize. You still don't make as much, but you're selling a lot more volume. It establishes your type of product in the market. Now you're establishing it under the brand name of whoever you're private labeling to. But if that product gets established in the market and you have your agreement private label for a 2-year agreement, so after 2 years you can go out and sell to other people, it still establishes the product in the market, and it'll still be easier for you than when you go out and try to make sales when you're not under the private label agreement but trying to establish your own brand name. The biggest thing that it helps you with is it increases the odds of a manufacturer picking up all of the production costs. So if you have a guaranteed distribution source, the manufacturer has a lot to gain, and therefore you will have a better chance that they'll put up some money because they'll want that volume, they'll want that production capacity utilization, and they'll want to see you really do something. Now, if you don't have a private label, and you're struggling a little bit to get going, take a look at private label. Take a look at what companies you're a really good fit for. And there's no better fit than you can private label now to another manufacturer who maybe has 4 or 5 really good products in his line, but is missing. Your product fulfills a missing gap, or it makes all his other products do better. In that particular case, a private label agreement is a lot safer for the manufacturer than a license where he takes on all the risk, and it's actually better for you because you get a better margin than the license. So if you're talking to a company about licensing, you should always mention the possibility of also doing a private label agreement. Joint ventures, again, this is in the video series, Creating an Introduction Plan. Video series 4 is all about joint ventures. Joint venture is simply where the partner company buys a percentage of your company, mostly done by partners to lock you in, either to produce your product or to sell your product. So they like your product, they want to go ahead, but they want to lock you in, and so that they're guaranteed that you'll be with them. These partners usually make a big investment to jumpstart the investment, and then you're like 50-50 partners. It's a good deal if you need money and partners believe in your product. Now, a lot of times, people will want a joint venture because they don't want to license, they might prefer to license the product, but they, are a little leery of doing that because you have certain skills that they need. One thing you can do if you're talking to people about joint ventures is, offer them instead, if they license the product, you'll give them an agreement like for 3 or 4 years to actually sell the product on commission. So therefore, if you're a manufacturer, you've got the product, you want to license it because that's a better deal for the manufacturer, but you can offer to sell the product and take a sales override or a commission, and maybe you could get a license that way. Joint ventures do have some problems, and that there's always seems to be thorny legal issues or little disputes that can be expensive to work out if you have to hire a lawyer. Exclusive distribution agreements are very common for an inventor. So, but you've got to stand tall and to get in a good agreement. You've got to negotiate. So let's say a distribution or a retailer or somebody else who's actually somehow involved in the distribution channel wants an exclusive agreement, and they're going to take your product and really pump it out. Well, that sounds really great for you, but you want to have some of your own terms in there. You need to have some demands for how much volume they're going to sell. They're going to do X amount of business for you, or they lose their exclusive. I mean, and then you have an upfront payment. So the upfront payment and your demands kind of go hand in hand. So if the distribution channel is willing to commit to a large volume that's really good, then the upfront payment is usually lower. But if they're kind of wishy-washy on just how much they're willing to commit to, which they try to do because it's better for them, then you can ask for a higher upfront payment. And usually if you kind of tie the two together, you can get a number for a promise of sales of a certain number that and a commitment to resources on their part to promote your product, and you can take a lower upfront payment. That's usually what works better for everyone. Now, when you have, so the guaranteed sales is just that manufacturer or distribution channel is going to really tell you this is the number I'm going to hit. Usually you give them a special price or a special deal, but if they don't hit that sales level, there should be either a higher price, should allow you to go out and get other distribution, or you should have some options so you can jump out of the plan. You want to go with an exclusive distribution agreement with someone who's got a very well-defined market focus. They're going after the very same target market you are. You want them to have a strong market presence. You want them having their line of what they're selling, a lot of complementary products. Every time you're going out to the final end user, it really pays to have a line of products all tied together for that one use. Then the customer or the end user doesn't have to guess just how it's going to work together. They know that you know how that works together because you're carrying the whole line. And try to go with a distribution agreement with someone who has a competitive advantage. Now, if you don't have an exclusive agreement, you want to keep this open when you're talking to people, and you want to target the people you feel are very best in the market and offer them this. What happens is, companies like to have this competitive advantage, and they're willing to talk to you about it, but you really need to take a look and see if this works for you and if it works for them and it's giving you what you need. I mean, don't go with an exclusive agreement without any kind of criteria on their part, because you might not be able to get out of this agreement for 2 or 3 years. And this gets up to the subject of long-term agreements. You have a long-term agreement with your manufacturing partner. Can have long-term agreements with your distribution partners. You can have long-term agreements too with the sharing resources people that you want. So a long-term agreement really is risky if your partners don't perform, because then what are you going to do if you're stuck into the agreement? So all your agreements really need to have outs for non-performance, and this includes manufacturing, distribution, resources, anybody that you're dealing with. Make sure that you have an out if they don't perform. Remember, you signed this agreement because they're probably giving you some upfront payment or some commitment of resources to promote your product. Well, if they don't deliver that, this agreement is not a good deal for you. Another thing you want to do is really see if you can get them to agree. So now they're going to make a money off of this distribution. So let's see, they have your product. Okay, and they're taking it out to these retailers. They're starting to get some market. Well, you want them to plow that profits back into promoting your product and developing the market, not taking those profits out and trying to just promote their own product line. So try, although you can't always get this, that they'll put back 20% of their profits from the product back into promoting your product. So you have a escalating support for your product. Very clear understanding of who's in charge of each decision. You don't want that to be kind of up in the air so that your long-term agreement partner can decide to do something you really don't like and that really affects you. So make sure that who's in charge of each decision is in the agreement. You really need an understanding of each partner's goals. So if you have a manufacturing agreement, it's his job to put the product out, to get the quality up, to keep finding ways to cut cost, and it's your obligation to be selling the product, moving it into the marketplace. Make sure it's very clear about who does what. And you want the agreements to have strong commitments and guarantees, because you have a lot of risk with a long-term agreement, and you want to be sure that they're committed and they're willing to make a guarantee. Usually if you hang tough and negotiate a long-term agreement, the manufacturer, your distribution partner, will probably opt for a short-term agreement, more or less to see how things work out before they're locked into a long-term agreement. And actually a short-term agreement is a little bit better for you, because then you don't have to be worried about like, oh, what happens? He just drops the ball. Am I out? And, I have to go through some kind of litigation to get out of my contract. It's all very thorny. And so the short-term agreement is better. So in the short-term agreement, you're just doing this for support for starting out. And a short-term agreement might be 1 year or it might just be a lot of very small items. For instance, marketing expenses. Um, so you might go for trade show costs in return for higher paybacks, which this means is that they're going to pay you to put you into the trade show, and then what you're going to do is you might be giving them uh, a marketing allowance of like 5% on everything they buy. So basically, what that means is, let's say you do $10,000 of sales, then you would take 5% of that money and put it back into a trade show allowance budget. And what you're doing there is just making an agreement, so sort of that sales will, that you'll help pay for the promotion of the product. But this way, when you do that, you're guaranteeing that the money is going to the trade shows, rather than if you just say, um, I'll give you a discount in return for marketing. You don't want to do that. You want to have some kind of commitment back and forth that they're spending the money on your product. Amortized tooling is a short term agreement. This means that the manufacturer will pay for the tooling, and then what you'll do is pay, let's say, 10 to 50 cents more per product that you buy in order to pay back the tooling. Design help, prototype up, all this is all very expensive, and what you do is you might just say, I'll pay 10% you know bonus on every on our agreed upon cost, and all of these products, all that 10% will go back to cover the prototype help and all of those other expenses that he does up front. And usually what happens is, let's say those expenses were $25,000, you'd be prepared to pay back, when you're doing it on a per sale basis, maybe 37,500, maybe a 50% premium in return for the manufacturer or the designer, whoever you're using, doing it and taking those expenses and getting paid back as the product continues to sell. There's a wide variety of possibilities on short-term agreements. Keep your minds open. Look at your product now. Look at your people you're depending on to get your product out, and go back and take a look and see what kind of agreements can I make this company that, one, on their side they want to keep you, two, they want to participate in your growth, and in return for that, you need some upfront money, and you might do the upfront money in any number of these ways where they give you support. They give you support in return for getting paid as your product sells. Sharing resources, as I said, there's many small companies out in the marketplace. Every one of those small companies, has little issues, and it's very common. For instance, for, let's say I'm a inventor in Minnesota with a company. Well, I'll make a deal with an inventor in New Jersey, and we'll promote each other's products in our own areas. That way, we can take our resources and expand them. We might hire a salesperson together. We might do brochures together. We might have trade shows together. So what you're looking for is, who are companies, and inventor founder companies that are a little short of money are very anxious to go sharing resources. And for you, an inventor, you're working with a company who does have a market presence, who is in the marketplace. Maybe he's been out there 2 or 3 years. Picking up that credibility from them is very important for you. It will really help you sell your product. So you might be sharing salespeople, customer service, trade show expenses. There's all types of sharing that you can do. Also, key accounts. It's very common for you to have some key accounts in your area that you've developed, and the other inventors have other key accounts. Maybe you can share your key accounts with each other, and you can sell the other person's product at your key accounts, and they sell your product at your key accounts. So this is really good. Again, sharing web pages, offering bigger solutions, all of this is really good for your product line. And manufacturing resources, this is another thing where you can share resources. Everybody wants production utilization. So if there's some things you can do better than the other person, share that manufacturing burden so you can all get higher capacity utilization and all cut your cost. That's really something everybody likes to do. So how do you find partners? The very first thing that you're going to look at when you're doing partners and getting them is you have to offer a 10 to 15% increase or more to their business. Otherwise, it's just too much trouble for them. And that extra 10 or 15%, gives them a great deal of profits to justify the time and energy and effort they'll have to put in to working out a deal with you. But at the same time, that 10 or 15%, you know, is really good for you too, and that you're working with somebody now who actually wants to work with you, and your business is important too. If you can't get a don't try to get a partnership with someone who you're only 1 or 2%. You just don't matter to them, and they're really not going to be willing to do it. So you need to be a good fit either in their manufacturing line where the production of your product really fits right into the production equipment, their processes they already have, or you're a really good fit into the distribution channels or the other manufacturer's product line where you really help go in there and make his products look better because they're offering a much better total solution. You have to have the other parts of your lineup in place. So if you're going to make a deal with a distributor or a distribution channel member or another manufacturer to sell your product, you've got to have your manufacturing person lined up. Now, this is kind of a bit of a, I don't know, yin and yang or back and forth a little bit because you can't afford to sign the manufacturer up, and he's not going to give you a very good deal if you don't have a deal signed up with a private label partner, some other kind of distribution channel. But you want to have that manufacturer ready to go. You want to work them. You want to tell them what you're willing to do and how you're willing to do it without really signing an agreement. And then when you get the distribution partner further along, then you go back to the manufacturer and say, now I'm at this stage. And then you kind of have to negotiate back and forth because you need both parties to get the other party to sign up. And you can't really get the other party to sign up with a good deal until you have the other guy kind of in line. So you kind of have to go back and forth and kind of massage the process so that you bring it forth to the final, signing deals with both companies at a time that you have nurtured them both at the same moment to give you a favorable deal. Remember, you want that financial partner, or all these partners, to have the financial power to fund your deal. Now, you won't get that when you're sharing resources with another smaller company, but be sure that your manufacturing partner or your distribution channel partner has funding to help you out. And don't go crazy and ask for a lot of money, but you want some money and some commitment from the partner. Now, it's kind of a sensitive area sometimes about asking people how much money they have. However, it's not unusual when you're getting ready to go to ask a company for financials. They often will give them to you, or they'll give you some information about their financial power. You can also talk to your local small business development center, your lawyer, or your bank for assistance in getting financial information. Don't give anything away without an upfront payment. I mean, you have to get a commitment out of them. And don't be afraid to ask for product introductions and check out some of their distribution or manufacturing partners too, if possible. Remember, you have a product that could help them. And if now all this is predicated, they believe your product will sell and that you can show that your product will sell, which goes back to your market research or maybe your early beachhead test that you've run or the sales success you've had today. So be sure to go and look at some of those investor presentations on the other video slides because they're going to help you to have the information. If your partners are reluctant, they have the funding, and you really see you're a benefit, they don't see then that your product is going to have a good chance of success, and you really should work harder at showing that. One of the ways you know if the partners are interested is just how easy it is to see them. Like if you have a potential partner and they're willing to meet with you like every month or two so you can show your progress, show you where you are, you know that partner likes your product. But if you have a very hard time making an appointment to see them frequently, maybe they're just not enthused about your product yet, and you have to work harder to show them that the product really has a powerful chance of success. And remember, don't ask for too much. You can asking for a big upfront cash payment is going to hurt you, but you be creative. Take a percentage of the sales. Establish what your product value is, and you could ask your local bank or your bank to help you set this up. And if you can show that your product line is worth like a 500,000 or 600,000, that gives you more impetus to actually show that the cash investment they're making and for the percentage of the company or the distribution agreement that you're offering is a really good deal. As far as value, what I like to say is that if you take your year 2 and 3 year earnings that you're projecting from your business plan, you average them out, and then you say that your earnings, you'll be worth 5 to 10 times of what your earnings is. And remember that your contributions, when you're really trying to do this, really matter. You need a prospect to put in 3 or 4 times your amount for 50%. So if you've invested, let's say 70,000, that company should be putting up $300,000 to $400,000 if they want to get 50% of the company. Don't settle for less. It's your product idea. You've worked on it. You've developed it to this point. You've done the market testing. You've really gone out and made network contacts. You've done a lot of work, and so you really want to see that. The companies realize that and realize that their contribution has to be greatly exceed yours in order to get 50% if you're doing a joint venture, or if they're going for 10%, then they better be matching what your investment has been. Don't be afraid to ask for it. Look around. It all gets back to one fact. If you're having trouble negotiating, the company doesn't like your product enough. You haven't proven your product will sell. You haven't shown all the stuff you've done in the marketplace. So whenever you're getting resistance, don't think about, I'll lower the product, I'll lower the price I want, or I'll lower the money I want, and think instead of, I've got to go back and re-show this company what kind of potential he really has. I haven't convinced them yet. Sign an MOU now when you're getting ready to go with a company. A memorandum of understanding is really the most common tactic for kind of having a preliminary agreement. It's non-binding, it includes confidentiality, it lays out a framework of what both parties' interest is, and it lists action that each of you are going to do. So the fact that they sign it shows a sign of commitment, and it also shows a sign of commitment from the other company. It says you'll have a period of like 3 months. Usually try to minimize it, where you're only going to be talking to this company about an agreement. Again, your Small Business Development Center can help you with this agreement. If you go to SCORE, www.score.org, they have people, they're mentors who would help you with this agreement. But you can also find, if you just put sample MOU agreements on an internet search, you'll get a lot of different MOUs that people have signed over the years. You can look those over and see what they're like. Again, don't be afraid to ask your Small Business Development Center what kind of low-cost legal assistance is available in your state, that's state-funded or otherwise funded, or it's just low-cost service from lawyers that you might be able to use in putting together this agreement. Memorandums of understanding are very standard. They're used all the time. So don't be afraid to propose that you sign one. Then, of course, an MOU is non-binding. It's just kind of a kind of a placing 3-month hold on that you're going to negotiate with this company and not anyone else to kind of finalize the agreement. Usually the MOU is signed by the president, so you know that the company is committed to really looking at your idea and trying to figure out a way to make this happen. But then you need a final agreement, and you need lack of performance by the partner. You want to deal with that. What happens on product derivations. That means your first product comes out, it's doing good, but now all of a sudden you can see some other markets where you can change the product, and you can make an improvement. So you might need to have new patents and things like that. You want to be sure the agreement defines that those are all owned by you or owned by the partnership, and not that the company can come out with a derivation of your product and rule you out. You don't want that to happen. You can define partner share and future investments. This is a big concern. So let's say your guys are going along and you need to have a big amount of money that you're going to put up. Well, you want to be sure that it's defined that your partners will put up more money than you are. So otherwise, they're going to want you to put up half. Uh, so you may not really need future investments, but you might. And the manufacturer might say, well, I have an agreement here. We've got to put in 4 new production equipment lines. It's going to cost me $1 million. You know, we have an agreement. Maybe you should put up some of the money. What? Define that in advance, not afterwards. You know, you need an exit strategy, which is just typically one buyer buying out the other, or you're going to sell out to another company, or again, just all this in your final agreements. Now, this is sort of these comments here kind of are for joint ventures, but they really uh, spill out onto almost all agreements, and you really want to be sure they really fit in. So be sure to check again with SCORE in your Small Business Development Center, and find a helpful business lawyer if you can. Again, the SBDC can help you, or low-cost legal services. All of these are assets that you can employ that will help you really look at your partnerships and see how you might make a better deal and get some agreements in place that you can really use to propel your company forward.